I set out to learn more about deadwood ecology in my home region of Sheepskin Hollow. This map shows the Connecticut River on the far left and follow east to the yellow circled area where I live and Sheepskin Hollow Preserve is. And all of these pins are observations I've made and logged on iNaturalist. Deadwood is having a bit of a renaissance. Instead of being viewed as only fuel for fires, vectors of pathogens, or a liability for crashing wood onto property and people, snags, stumps, and logs are getting their due as considered to be key in the life cycle of the saprophytes. And those dead wood loving saprophytic animals and fungi are the fungi, the wood boring beetles, and the slime molds, as these all interact with other fungi, insects, and plants, and the deadwood. This image of hen of the woods fruiting body is at the base of a red oak snag that was depleted by sponge moths in 2016-17. Hen of the woods, along with white pored chicken of the woods, are butt rot and heartwood rot fungi that prefer oak. This chicken of the woods is on a white oak snag that became a stump, and I got to watch the decline and decay of this fruiting body over the period of our class project. These fungi were parasitic on living tree tissue and now are decomposers of dead wood that will fruit annually as long as the nutrition is available and the moisture is right. This white oak snag was recently cut down after having remained alive with this huge gap in its trunk and then standing for several years. The log of trunk clearly shows that it had heartwood rot, and here is evidence of armillaria fungus. This eastern hemlock snag has lost its top, and hemlock varnish reishi grows on its trunk. At first, I thought there was both reishi and artiscock on the tree, but learned that when this polypore releases its plentiful spores, it often dusts neighboring brackets, turning their varnish matte brown. This fruiting body fell down after a storm of drenching rain. In the upper right, we can see the point of attachment to the corkwood, and bottom right is a zoom image high up in the snag where the fungi fell from. American beech trees often snap in response to having had beech bark disease, making tall, straight snags. This snapped piece of the trunk is next to it and laying down across the trail it was cut. And now we see on the end and along the log crowded parchment. Now this is a small fruiting body, a common crustose fungi in the Sterium genus. Tar crust fungus makes this black amoebic fruiting body. And here we have beechwood woodwort. And let me see if I can make this pointer work to show you here. No, I can't get that to record. Try again. There, and there, and this is the beechwood woodwort right here that is then pictured in these other slides. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about the nectaria fungus of the beech bark disease, making annular cankers, not annual, annular cankers that crowd up together. And when all of these build up to the point that they encircle the tree trunk, these will girdle the tree and end its life. This mossy maize polypore is also on this beech tree trunk. These photos show the coming and going of algae on this fungus, and you can note this piece of wood right here that I'll use this yellow marker with again to follow through and see that it is the same piece of polypore that goes green with algae when it's wet, back to mostly white when it's drier, and back to green again. The mossy maize polypore has an interesting story to tell, not only in its relationship to algae, but it has a relationship with a couple of wasps. The horntail wood-boring wasp will get this polypore's spores on its ovipositor, deposit them in wood along with her eggs, and then when the larvae hatch, they have a fungal food source. But the mossy maize polypore limits the fungus eating and population of that first wasp by emitting a pheromone that attracts an ichneumon wasp that preys on the horntail larvae. There is so much going on that we easily miss during a walk in the woods. Fungi fruiting bodies are mostly ephemeral or small, and the fuller life of saprophytic fungi is going on in the wood in the forms of mycelia, hyphae, and spores. This is an image of an eastern red cedar that has likely been crowded out by the succession of the forest canopy. Bryophytes, the mosses, tend to prefer the acidic decay wood of conifers, and the common bonnet mushroom here prefers very decayed wood. Here is a yellow birch log with a guild fungus, and I'll circle it with that yellow. And note where it is in relationship to the photograph, and we'll follow that through in the next image. This log also has green wood cup staining fungus. Now, this one is not a decay fungus, but the stain is persistent. And when used in inlaid woodwork, as in making violins, the color has lasted hundreds of years. And here we can see how that Megacolibra fungus is starting to decay here in the upper left and completely losing its form in the lower right. This is the first of two parachute fungi. This one is the fetid parachute. It too is very responsive to changes in moisture. In the upper left, you can see one is falling over on a drier day, and then when the rain comes, they pop right back up. Here we have a collared parachute mushroom, and this is likely a green ash trunk that is down. And here is the collared ash in its small form, and then below is the uh, blown up picture of the collared ash. And the crown-tipped coral fungus is a fairly common fungus as well. And here is the stump, likely of that green ash, and it's just across the trail. This stump, I've often been attracted to it, and mostly for its amoebic-like structure, patterning that's almost abstract art. The patches of gray, white, and black could be a graphic fungus, but more likely it is showing off the contact between different species of fungus. And engaging in these competitive boundary buildings allows the wood to persist longer as each of these fungi put their energy into maintaining space instead of growth. Also, this stump brought me a grand example of an ascomycete, fungi that shoot their spores instead of just dropping their sac. These photos are from April to early July when I noticed this fungus body fruiting right here, and this is a dead man's finger, aka Xylaria polymorpha. I'm calling this the first one that I saw, and here's a top view, and you can see where the spores pop out of the top. And I'm calling this the third one because it's around behind the stump. And this one that looks ever so creepy, I'm calling the second one, as it is to the left of this first one, and it's tucked into almost a cave of a crack in the wood. So if you look online, you can see whole hands of dead man's fingers. Uh, yeah, very creepy, very interesting fungus. Um, and as you look at these pictures across time, you can see how they become mottled and begin to deteriorate. And here on the left, the first one has fallen over, and perhaps there's a second one behind it here. And they are pretty much done with their fruiting and spore shooting. Next up come the slime molds, and this is simply just a quick picture tour to share what a sense of these fruiting bodies look like. They are extremely ephemeral, disappearing from this phase of their life cycle within days. The dog vomit slime mold is fairly common, and here is one on a log with a rodent track running through it. A good key to look at those rodent tracks and see on the next photos how that is deteriorating simply from July 4th to the 27th. And the next set of photos are the jelly fungi that I saw. Just as many of the slime molds feed on fungi, the jelly fungi are parasitic on other saprophytic fungi. And they are very gelatinous in texture. And this is a parasitic fungus that's a real problem in commercial mushroom raising. So here we have the final stage of decay. The wood becomes humus to soil, and a gilled mushroom is growing up from the soil layer. So these trees contribute with the participation of the saprophytic species that contribute to an ecology of deadwood that cycles nutrients right round. So that now we have a mountain laurel seedling taking root on the left, and on the right, a white oak seedling emerging from a downed yellow birch log. So all of this is part of what happens after sponge moth, woolly adelgid, beech bark disease, and armillaria have their way with a tree.